Hey there. We are live, it looks like, and I was just a little bit bored today, so I figured I would do a little live broadcast here and check out some bottles that I've been waiting to open and some samples. So let's get to it, shall we? We're going to start out with, first off, I need just a pour of something simple. This is the Bottle and Bond 6-year Heaven Hill that's been discontinued. Maybe I can make that light a little bit better for you. Maybe not. It may not be that coordinated. Whatever. We'll worry about it later. Let's pour this. Okay. There we are. There we go. Okay, we're going to have just a little taste of the Heaven Hill. Good stuff. I'll always love that. We're going to move on next to, I got a bunch of different things here. Namely, I've got 4 samples from my cousin Todd. I want to go through some of those. So let's see what we have here. We probably won't be on too late tonight, but we've got there's a Pinhook vertical 4-year-old rye, 111 proof, Seelbachs pick. Well, that's going to be good. We got an Old Elk wheated bourbon, 115. That's a Seelbachs pick too. Smoke Wagon small batch and an Old Pepper finest Kentucky oak rye. We're going to start with the Smoke Wagon because it's probably the lowest proof of anything we got here tonight. And I've never had that happen before. Can you see that? Little inside of the cap came off there. And Todd found some interesting Boston rounds for us here. All right. Now, believe it or not, I haven't had a Smoke Wagon yet. I haven't tasted any of them. I hear a lot of good things about them, and I love the underlying whiskey, so I'm imagining that I'm going to like this one. I don't think this is one of the single barrels. It's not the barrel proof, so it's probably, I think they're 100 proof otherwise. Let's see if we can see that. Got the new camera, new lens going today too, so kind of excited for that. Let's see here. That smells good. A little black licorice on the nose there. Yeah, a lot of black pepper. There's some black licorice, some kind of black currants, plum, really dark fruits in there. Good stuff. There's something else there too. There's something almost like a raspberry Danish or with some like cream cheese. Whoa, that's interesting. That's all black pepper. This has to be the high rye mash bill from MGP because I believe that's where the Smoke Wagon stuff comes from. It has to be the very high rye. It's really peppery, really spicy. I really like it. I like that. I like all the MGP products. That's tasty. Really spicy though. I mean, this was blended straight up to the black pepper. Just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm gonna have to be on the lookout for some of those Smoke Wagon picks now. That's a really good. It's a really good mash. Well, it's super spicy, super peppery. When I say spicy, I mean straight up black pepper. I don't mean cloves, baking spices, or anything like that. There's a little bit of oak on the tail end and on the nose, but it is. I mean, it is rye. You could fool me that if it wasn't a touch sweet, along with it, you could tell me that that's a rye whiskey. And I encourage you to actually swallow it and not inhale it, as I just tried to do there. All right, let's rinse that. Let's pop another one, shall we? Shall I go Old Pepper or Pinhook? We'll go Pinhook. No, we're going to do Old Pepper, Finest Kentucky Oak Rye. This is from Todd Ritter, my cousin-in-law. He dropped this off a while back and has been waiting for me to taste them. I think I have a few more samples of his too in the other room. I wish I'd brought those out. I've got a Old Scout Rye, I know, 6 or 7 year from him, maybe 8. Those are wonderful. Ooh, that's a complete change of pace from that Smoke Wagon. Granted, it's a bourbon versus a rye, but dill out the wazoo on this thing. So much dill. That's crazy. And it smells, I get a little bit of that. You know, when you have a rye, that's a little bit on the young side, they have this, it reminds me a little bit of some scotches too. They get this kind of a grassy note or a grainy note to them. I'm getting that on the nose here. I have no idea if that'll carry through to the palate. But there's also some good oak to this as well. But definitely, I'm going to say that there's this graininess that does typically come with young distillate, especially with rye. There's a mint in there. A lot of like a simple syrup, which I typically get in wheated bourbons, especially Heaven Hill stuff, not rye. Yeah. What does that smell? Bubble gum? A little bit of bubble gum. Like that, you know, the old pink comes in a pack of baseball cards, bubble gum, that type stuff. I get that. That's interesting. Yeah, it's very viscous for a rye. You don't expect that out of a rye, but it very much kind of coats the palate a little bit here. That bubblegum flavor is still there. The mintiness is there in spades. There's another note on the nose that I can't place. What is that? You know, you could fool me and tell me that this was barrel finished in something too, because there's something kind of boozy on top of this, almost like a fortified wine, almost like a cognac. There's kind of sourness you can get from a cognac. I'm kind of getting that on the nose here. I don't get it as much on the palate, so it's not quite the same, but. Yeah, it tastes young. Not really my cup of tea on this one. There's nothing wrong with it. I imagine in a few years it'll be a really good whiskey. But whatever it is, I don't think that's MGP distilled. This might be their own. Whatever it is, it just needs a little more time. It needs to grow up a little bit. Yeah, I wouldn't reach for this one. It's not offensive. It's just not up my alley. There's a lot of other options out there, so I'm kind of the camp that you don't really have to compromise when you're drinking rye and bourbon. You can find rye and bourbon at great prices that are perfectly fine, perfectly drinkable. And if you have something that is in your mind, it's a little bit flawed or just doesn't hit your palate right, don't waste your time. So rinse that out. We're going to go to the Pinhook. So this is a Seelbachs pick. It's 4 years old. I think it's called Pinhook Vertical. Pinhook, 4 years old. It's a rye, 111 proof. Now, I know these are bottled at Castle and Key, but I think these might be MGP as well for the actual underlying whiskey. I'll drink a little bit more water here real quick, just kind of reset my palate. There's a trick I learned a while back. I don't remember who taught this to me, but if you ever feel like you need to reset your olfactory senses in the middle of a tasting, to take your bare elbow and stick your nose in the inside of your elbow and just give it a smell. And surprisingly, it works. There's a number of other things you can do too, but you never have to have, if you do it this way, a lot of people say coffee grounds is a good one, but if you do it with just your arm essentially, then you never have to worry about having coffee grounds or something like that with you. So, there we are. It's kind of baked goods. I'm smelling like dough, bread dough, or pizza crust dough before it's been cooked. If you've ever made homemade dough and you kind of roll it in flour. Kind of pasta as it's being made, not while you're cooking the stuff, but I mean if you're actually making the dough and rolling out the pasta. And a little bit of like cocoa powder. Yeah. It's probably MGP. It's probably the 95.5. It's got that, you get a little bit of the mint on this. I don't get a lot of dill with it. A little bit of the mint that you would expect. But it has that MGP characteristic of kind of candied citrus is what I like to call it. And it reminds me of like a can of peaches that's in that sugar water or whatever. Those peaches come out and they were kind of citrusy at the beginning. And fruity, but they've been kind of marinated in this sweet sugar syrup or whatever it's called. I get that on the palate with a lot of MGP stuff. When it's really kind of hitting the spot, that's kind of what it gives me in spades, along with a little bit of kind of lemon zest, and even you might even say candied lemon zest, like a not sour, but kind of a sweet lemon flavored candy. Yeah, and as this has been in the glass, it's a little more prominent, that note on the nose. A little bit of black pepper, but the baked stuff is still in there on the nose. I really like that. I'm really digging the nose on this. That's a pretty nose. I really enjoy that. That's a good whiskey. Yeah, for 4 years old, that's a drinker. I like that. I enjoy that. I would reach for that. I did a Pinhook. It's probably my favorite video that I recorded for Modern Thirst. It was a 3-year-old Pinhook rye. And it's still here on YouTube if you want to search through our channel, but I couldn't get the bottle open. It had this wax on it that had to be like half an inch thick or something. And I mean, I worked on that thing for about 5 minutes in the middle of the video. Had to cut it out, and it was such kind of a funny process for me that I kind of left parts of it in there and played some clown music over it. But The whole video, I just kept making mistakes and saying stupid shit that I didn't catch until the end. But yeah, it's a it was a fun video to shoot, and I really enjoyed the Pinhook. I think it punches well above its weight class. So really enjoyed it. Yeah, I could drink that. I could sit around and drink that all night. Probably don't want to because I don't want to be hammered before I go to bed. Got kids sleeping upstairs. Got to rinse that glass out a little bit while you're doing it. By the way, we got our new 4-gate coins in. I love these things. Come on, focus. There they are for 2020. So we have green, since we released our Rise this year for the first time in 2020. We've got the name of all the batches around the outside, but they make really good. I like to collect things like this, whiskey coins, and they make good Glencairn toppers. So pretty excited about that. So this last one, Old Elk, it's a wheated bourbon, 115.4 proof. This is a Seelbachs pick, and I have not had an Old Elk yet of any kind. So pretty happy about trying this. Thank you again, Todd, as I've kind of blown through all 4 of your samples here in about less than 20 minutes. So this will not be a long video. Oh, that's got some good notes to it. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to check my mic here real quick, make sure it's working. It is working. Make sure I've got the right one selected. All right, yeah, we're back. I have a feeling that my audio and video are off because it's using my video is going through OBS Studio and my audio is coming straight from the cam link. For whatever reason, I could not get the camera to work correctly. Just going straight from the. Well, I'm still here. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah, so for whatever reason tonight, my the StreamYard here does not want to connect directly to the cam link for my camera, so I have to run it through OBS software. But it won't take the audio coming out of the OBS software, so I have to. I'm taking the audio straight out of the camera, so I have a feeling that my audio is probably ahead of video right now. I'm sorry about that. I'll try to fix that for next time. But we're going back to the Old Elk. I really like the nose on this. I'm digging this. There's a dark fruit on this. Brown sugar. You know what's funny with wheated bourbons, the higher the concentration of wheat, unless you're talking about Woodford, not Woodford, excuse me, Weller, and any of the Heaven Hill wheaters, the higher the concentration of wheat, the more people tend to get this kind of orchard fruit, kind of like apple or pear. To me, like a really heavily wheated whiskey or bourbon for most companies, other than the two that I just mentioned, they tend to become more and more like tastes like whiskey that was finished in apple brandy to me. And this one does not have that, which I enjoy because I don't like that flavor. It's a reason I don't like the Woodford wheated whiskey. And it's a reason why I like Maker's Mark is another one that doesn't have that. Maker's Mark Cask Strength, the Weller 107, and any of the Heaven Hill products, even the Bernheim, which is a wheat whiskey as opposed to a wheated bourbon, don't have that kind of fruit quite to the level of some of these other ones. So it kind of makes me happy to get a whiff of this and not taste it. You know, one of the other ones I don't get that in that I really like is the Wilderness Trail. Their wheated bourbon, I think, is really good. I have a couple of single barrel picks of those. I really enjoy those. And I'm typically not a wheated bourbon guy or even a wheat whiskey guy. I typically like, you know, kind of the spicier, the better on the bourbon scale. And until it becomes a rye, really, then it's kind of hit and miss for me. Sometimes I love them. Sometimes I hate them on ryes. But typically I like a high rye bourbon. And this one is getting me in all the right spots here because I like the smell of this. Again, this is the Old Elk wheated. And it's got a little bit of that bubblegum characteristic. That reminds me a lot of Heaven Hill. A little bit of, it's dark fruits instead of that fresh orchard fruit. It's not pears. It's not green apples. So it's not that apple brandy kind of smell to it. It's a very sweet, this is kind of like more like the classic wheated bourbons to me. It airs more towards the sweet, sugary, simple syrup. Not airs. It tends towards that a lot more than it does to the orchard fruits, which I enjoy a lot more than those. Some of the Johnny Come Latelys, we'll call them. Wow, that's interesting. Would not have guessed that was a wheated bourbon just on the palate. It's very sweet on the periphery, but there's something down the center of the palate, just runs front to back. It's like a black licorice. That's tasty. That's a good product. I don't know the age on this. Again, the ones that I have are just samples, so they have just kind of scrawled handwriting on them from Todd, or Toddrick, as I sometimes call him. I've got too much light going in here. I don't know what's going on with that. Got to tone the light down next time. Yeah, it's really good. Don't know the age. I think they're probably all in the 4 to 6 year range, if I've read correctly. That's tasty. It's different. It reminds me of a couple of them that I've smelled before, but the taste, that black licorice down the middle with the sweet on the periphery, that's good. All right. Let's do a little rinsing of the glass, and we'll move on to a couple of bottles I need to open. This is what do I have over here? All right. So the two bottles I have to open are, I mean, I'm sure you guys have probably seen these before and reviews of these, but it's the latest Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. It's the A121. It's 123.6 proof. So they've gone way down again this year. A couple years ago, they had dipped, and I think Timothy and I did a video where they had kind of jacked it back up into the high 130s again, proof in terms of proof on the Elijah Craig. When they initially dropped the proof down, I think it was B519 or something like that, was in the 120s, and it was probably the best batch of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof they've done. I really enjoyed it. I think a lot of people did. A lot of people had it as their whiskey of the year. It was in my top 10, top 5. The one thing that I'll say about it is that it didn't taste like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. it tasted like an excellent whiskey. But when you think of Elijah Craig barrel proof, it typically puts some hair on your chest, man. And that one didn't, for whatever reason. It, being slightly lower proof, it was sweeter. It was much easier to drink. What it kind of comes down to for me is I kind of wish, I'm having that same issue getting the paper off of this one. I kind of wish they had released that as something else instead of the ECBP, because it just doesn't, it's kind of like that, Stag from a year or two ago that was so low, the proof was really low and it didn't taste like Stag. When you think of George C. Stag, I mean, you expect it to hurt if you take a big gulp of that first thing. That's what you want. It's a powerful, strong, really powerful bourbon, really full flavors. That's what you expect out of Elijah Craig barrel proof. 12 years old. This one's 123.6. So this is lower again than traditionally ECBPs have been. Let's see if I can get this here without. Yeah. A121. Focus. Give me some. There you go. A121. 61.8% alcohol. Oh, man. There's no accounting for, putting some legit age on a bourbon. There's just nothing changes it. You can do all sorts of things to a whiskey to make it taste good, but you just can't replicate age in an oak barrel. And Heaven Hill, they nail it on this 12-year. I'm going to go, it's probably unpopular and more people disagree with me than agree. But by and large, I think most bourbons over 9 years old kind of suck. You have to be very careful and pick the right barrels. Heaven Hill in particular, 12-year is kind of its sweet spot. It shouldn't. I've had maybe one or two of the Heaven Hill Elijah Craig 18s that were pretty good. But by and large, the 18s are worse. When they used to do the 20 and the 21 and the 23, they get successively worse the longer they're aged. And that's just, Heaven Hill is so oak forward to start with. I don't know why that is with Heaven Hill. It's not like they use a heavier char than anyone else, but in fact, they use lighter than a lot of people. But they're very oak forward in their flavor profile. Taste them at kind of 10-year. I mean, it's very oaky bourbon. So I always say that after 12 years old, you should stop drinking Heaven Hill stuff. But at 12 years old, they can nail it. And this one, I mean, it smells like oak. It smells like fresh sawned white oak, like you're in a wood shop. There's sawdust all around. There's a little bit of red fruit. There's a little bit of, it's not really citrus. It's like a lemonade, really. A little bit of black pepper. I'm unabashedly a Heaven Hill fanboy. I love the flavor profile of their stuff. Traditionally, they have been a great value brand in terms of actually quite a bit. I mean, if you were to put out a 12-year-old barrel proof Buffalo Trace or Knob Creek or something like that, it'd be pretty significantly more expensive than these tend to run. They tend to be about $70 now. They used to be around 60. I think they're probably closer to 75 now, but they are one of the very few, it's still a limited release, but they're one of the very few that you can, without too much work, you can find them and you don't have to sell your firstborn to get it. And they taste awesome. Yeah. Again, this is going to be real similar to when the proof dropped a while back. This is good whiskey. This is a good bourbon. It's a very good bourbon, actually. There's a ton of oak on the finish there, by the way. I mean, it just grabs you and says, oak! ton of bourbon on that, a ton of oak on that bourbon. It doesn't taste like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof always does to me. It just doesn't remind me. If you give me this, it's not what I would guess this was if I tasted it blind. That's a little disappointing, I think, at some level. But by the same token, it's nice for them to change it around a little bit sometimes too. You don't want to get complacent with expecting to deliver the exact same thing every time. So it's good. It doesn't taste like ECBP to me, but it's good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Not bad. It's again in the scale of all the Elijah Craig barrel proofs, and I've probably had most of them for the last 6 years. If not, I might have missed one or two batches where I probably have 12 unopened bottles of barrel proof and probably just as many open. So I don't really hunt it when it comes out. I get a lot of them, media samples. I kind of luck across them sometimes, and I'll pick them up when I see them. But I don't hunt the barrel proof because I have so many of them. But of the ones that I've tasted, this is probably going to be in the lower third. But by saying that, it's still better than 90%, 80% of the whiskeys that I try, if that makes sense. Because these are all good. These are all like a step above most bourbons, if that makes sense. This just isn't one of the shining examples to me of a great ECBP. But it's still very good. I'm never, ever going to turn it down at someone's house, or if I happen to see this bottle sitting on my shelf, I'm probably going to grab it and pour a drink from it. I mean, to be honest, I like whiskey. Yeah, not bad. I'll try a little mad scientist thing here. Next time I do one of these, I'll probably be over in the bar. It's in the other room. This is kind of my office where I work all the time, and I just didn't feel like moving the camera and everything. But I'm going to do a little 6-year Heaven Hill mixed with a little bit of that Elijah Craig and see what we can get out of that. So before I start, one thing that I love about this old school 6-year bottle and bond is there's a peanut character to it. Now, when you drink a lot of Tennessee whiskey, it's peanut brittle, and it's almost like offensive peanut brittle, like over the top. This one is peanuts, and I love it. Like a mixture of peanuts and cashews, and I love that. I'm not getting it in the Elijah Craig, and I don't get it in all of Heaven Hill stuff, but I get it in most anything that actually says Heaven Hill on the front of it. That's kind of one of the calling cards to me of it. So I'm going to I have a little blend here, and it's probably about 50-50 between the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof and the Bottled and Bond 6-year. So we'll see how that is, because we're just screwing around here tonight. So why not? I kind of like the smell of this better than the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof on its own. That's actually pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it's fun to just screw around with stuff that you got open in front of you, but that worked out pretty well. So again, if you just joined, that's a mixture. I've got the A121 of Elijah Craig. It just came out. It's a barrel proof, and then because I was just kind of sipping on this on the side, this is one of the old 6-year bottle and bond Heaven Hills. If I can do something about that light so it's not blinding. It smells great. Tastes pretty good too. So it kind of introduced some of that Heaven Hill peanutty flavor to Elijah Craig, which typically doesn't have it. And it's a low proof Elijah Craig, so I think it's better with the blend than it was before. To be totally honest. You should try that sometime, guys. If you've got got a barrel proof at home and you've got any other, I mean, I would probably use anything that Heaven Hill makes, but try it with the Evan Williams or the Evan Williams bottle and bond, something along those lines. Try a little blend of those sometime. People like to do that with the Pappy, or what they call poor man's Pappy, with the 12 and the 12 and 107. Is that what they mix it with? I think that's it. The Weller 12 and the old Weller Antique, whatever. Kind of just a neat little thing here. Another thing I found that blends really well is if you can kind of make a 4-grain with it, but take the Heaven Hill Bernheim and then take regular Elijah Craig, or even better, the Evan Williams single barrels, any of those, blend them about 50-50. They're really good. They're just really good. Trust me on this. I mean, I like to play around with blending. Obviously, with 4-gate, I do a lot of blending, so it's kind of fun for me to do play a little mad scientist once in a while. So we're gonna rinse out the glass here and move on to our last full bottle, which, as you can probably guess, is the latest Larceny barrel proof. And this is 114.8 proof. This is batch A121, as should be expected. So if I can manage to get this one open, I hope I can. There it is. We're going to taste this. So we have another video coming up this week. I'm going to do more of a formal sit down. I'll record it rather than live, but I'm going to taste something that someone sent me to try. And it was bourbon that's been aged on a riverboat or a barge or something like that. And I'm kind of excited to try it. And it's not a bourbon. Interestingly, it's a bourbon and rye blend mixed together. So back to Larceny. So I've got, I like regular Larceny. I use it all the time if I'm doing like a Kentucky Mule. I think they make the best Kentucky Mules. I use, I don't know if you can tell, but I am a little bit hefty in size. So I try to cut down on carbs. I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight here before summer to get into my bikini bod, obviously. What I like to use for a cocktail instead of beer, which puts the weight on me like you wouldn't believe, is I get the Diet Gosling's ginger beer, and then I just mix some bourbon with it and squeeze a lime juice if I feel like it. But that's a Kentucky Mule. It's just like a Moscow Mule, but with bourbon or whiskey. For whatever reason, I love Larceny. I like any of the Heaven Hill weeded stuff, Bernheim or Old Fitz, which you can still get here in Kentucky, just a 90 proof or 86 proof, I think it is. And Larceny, too, works really well for it. They make really good ones. But the barrel proofs, when they first came out, there was 2 or 3 barrels, just an individual barrel of them. They came out for, I don't remember if it was the Derby Festival or one of the bourbon festivals here in Louisville a couple years ago. And I got 2 of those bottles, 2 different barrels, and they were god-awful. I mean, terrible, terrible, terrible whiskey. Just tasted like someone had burned it to a crisp, like they were holding a flamethrower in your mouth and made me chew on bits of charcoal or something like that. But when the Larceny barrel proof came out, it was everything that those single barrels weren't. It was smooth. It was sweeter. It didn't just like suck all the moisture out of your mouth and kick you in the balls while you were drinking it. So I haven't had this one, but I've had the last 3 batches of this, I think, of the batch stuff. And I really like these. I know a lot of people like to dissect the individual batches of Elijah Craig and Larceny. Typically, there's not a huge variation. Now, the Elijah Craig one there has been, and particularly with this one, because it's such a lower proof than most of the Elijah Craig barrel proofs are. But by and large, you're talking subtleties in the difference between batches of Larceny barrel proof and Elijah Craig barrel proof, for the most part, except when they come out with the 120 proof versus the 140 proof. There's a big difference there. But by and large, you're talking about subtle differences. So you're talking about if you like the flavor profile of Larceny, if you like it, you'll like most of the Larceny barrel proof small batches. You will. If you don't, then you're just going into it with probably have some preconceived notions of what you want out of it, not what it's going to be, if that makes sense. But this one, I do like Larceny. I do like the flavor profile. I don't compare it to Weller because it's a completely different taste, and a lot of people do. They heard that Larceny was weeded, and they decided that therefore I can't find Weller anymore. Therefore, Larceny has to taste like Weller. Well, it doesn't. It just doesn't. The mash bill probably has a little bit less to do with flavor than people expect. The barrels have more. The yeast have more. All these have more. Larceny is going to taste more like a Heaven Hill than it is a Weller, and Weller is going to taste more like most anything else Buffalo Trace than it is any other whiskey. Other than I will say that the Maker's Cask Strength is probably the most similar thing out there to Weller. Anyway, back to Larceny. I think I mentioned it earlier tonight with one of the other things I tasted tonight. With Heaven Hill's weeded stuff, one thing I always get is, if you remember these, you're probably as old as me. I'm 45. Remember circus peanuts that you used to get in like your Easter basket or wherever, and they're like soft, kind of marshmallow consistency, but tasted better. I don't like marshmallows, but tasted better than marshmallows. Those circus peanuts is what I get on the nose, and I get a little bit of it on the palate for Heaven Hill's weeded bourbon and their wheat whiskey, especially anything pre-fire. So if you've got an old Fitzgerald from pre-fire days, it's going to have that in spades. It's going to explode on the nose. But this one, sure enough, smells like circus peanuts to me. There's a lot of oak on here, a lot of oak. And there should be. I mean, these are, I think they say now 6 to 8 years. When they launched this, they said 6 to 9, and they're kind of slowly creeping down on those age statements. That's fine. It hasn't really hurt the quality yet. Let's see, Todd just joined us. Todd, you missed all 4 of the samples. I went through all 4 of your recent samples: the Old Pepper, Old Elk, Pinhook, and Smoke Wagon. Love the Smoke Wagon. Tasted like it's a very high rye recipe. Like the Pinhook. Love the Old Elk. Old Pepper is probably not up my alley, but the nose on this is really good. This is, again, the Larceny Barrel Proof Batch A121. So we're going to get into this because this is classic to me. Just smells like a classic version of Heaven Hill's weeded stuff. And it, come on. I'm a Heaven Hill fanboy. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. If you like Larceny, this is exactly what you should expect Larceny Barrel Proof to taste like. I mean, it's a small batch version. This is not a single barrel. There shouldn't be a huge variation. It tastes like Larceny on steroids, which is what the barrel proof version should taste like. Just like Elijah Craig, it should taste like your Elijah Craig small batch on steroids. Now, there's one big difference with the Elijah Craig, and that's that the barrel proof is still 12 years old. So you kind of have to go back to the age-stated 12-year Elijah Craigs. They were a lot oakier. They're a lot woodier than the current iteration. And Elijah Craig barrel proof tastes just like those old, the big red 12s that used to be on the front. Tastes just like those on steroids. This one tastes just like Larceny on steroids. It's good. It's very sweet for a bourbon. Super sweet, very sugary, simple syrup, circus peanuts. There's a lot of oak on it. Vanilla. I think this is the first time I said vanilla tonight, which is kind of funny. Drinking bourbons and stuff, you expect that to be in spades on any bourbon. This is the first time it's jumped out at me. Kind of buttery, kind of like a melted butter. Macadamia nuts? I don't get that very often. I had some recently, so maybe that's why it's fresh in my mind. I don't know. I really like this. On the nose especially, it's really good. But I think Larceny Barrel Proof is a really good. It's just like the Elijah Craig. It's a good value too, and I drink it a lot. The golf club that I'm a member of, they have it at a really good. It's like $9 a pour or something like that, and it's just really compared to everything else in its range, it's a no-brainer. And I think the one that they have was the first. Again, they don't go through a ton of it, but I think it was the first batch from last year. So it was the A120. I think is the one that they have on the shelf there. If not, and then it's the B5, whatever it is, 520, I guess it is. But I know it's not the C batch from last year. But it's similar to this. This one is probably. I think I like this one a little bit more than the one that I drink a lot after golf. I haven't played golf in a while because it's been cold as shit here in Kentucky with lots of snow. But yeah, good stuff. Really is. It smells great. Todd says the Old Elk Seelbachs pick is excellent. Yes, it is, Todd. Thank you very much for the sample. Good stuff. So I probably could have gone over to the other room and pulled out, I don't know, 5 or 6 other bottles to go through tonight, but I really don't want to get destroyed. And we're already at 45 minutes, so I'm probably going to cut this off within the next 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes or so. I am going to have one more pour. So I always have to end with a little bit of 4-gate. Boom. Product placement. There it is. This is batch 1. The only reason I'm drinking this right now, the Calvin collaboration, is because that's what happens to be in my office. My office is an unfinished room in the basement, by the way. My day job, I would go into the office every day before COVID. We have an office upstairs in the master bedroom. My wife has worked from home for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years or something like that. So she staked that out as her area with her computer and all her stuff in. So when COVID came around, I set up an office here in an unfinished room in our basement, which is why I got curtains and shit behind me, because you don't want to see the stock boxes and garbage that's in there. But we've kind of decided that since it looks like this working from home thing is going to be permanent or semi-permanent, that we're probably going to finish this room. So at some point, those curtains will go away and we'll be able to have some fun stuff behind it. And these might look a little better. But I'm going to have a little bit of 4-gate. I love that. Sentimentally, that Calvin collaboration 1, the first batch, is just... every time I taste it, what I really remember, we had a launch party at 502 Winery here in Louisville. Beautiful place. It was a perfect place for it. It just brings me back to that night, and we were just so excited. We were so happy to be releasing our first whiskey, and we had all of our friends. We had retailers, we had distributors, and just media people and family, and it was just such a great night. And we cracked open all these bottles. We probably had, I don't know, 50 bottles there or something like that. But we cracked open all these bottles, and we just poured and poured and poured and poured all night long. It was just such a good night, and every time I taste it, it just brings me right back to it. It just that night, and this is my new favorite glass, our blue engraved 4-gates. Oh, so awesome. So good. But yeah, so anyway, glad some of you guys could join us tonight. Follow along as I tasted a few different things. Really just was kind of bored. The wife had something up at the golf club tonight, at dinner or something like that, and the kids are in bed, so I figured, why not? Got some stuff I need to go through, wanted to taste these samples. And I have a new camera this year and a new lens. I have the Sony A6100, if you're a camera nerd like I am, audiovisual nerd. And then I bought I have a ton of lenses, because actually there's a bunch of them sitting back here. My old camera was the old Sony A3000. They use the same lens mount, so you can use a lot of the same lenses. So I have a bunch of lenses, but this one is kind of an updated version of the one that I was using last year, which was a Sigma. I think that's it. This was a 19 millimeter. So the new one is a 16 millimeter. It's a much bigger aperture, so it's better in low light. And I'm really liking the video that we see here tonight. So I'm going to keep using this lens and this camera. I actually have a brand new microphone for it too. Again, I'm kind of a tech nerd. I love this stuff, and I love audiovisual stuff, and I will always be tinkering and buying new things here and there. And it's kind of fun to just just play around and try to have the video quality just a little bit better. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me tonight. I was bored and just wanted to taste some whiskey, and I couldn't think of a better way to do it than right here on YouTube. So thanks so much. I'm probably going to sign off here. Have a good night. You guys take care. Cheers.